Hi everyone! Today I'm going with my parents to my mother's hometown of Hanko, or Hangö as we say in Swedish. It is located on the most southern point of Finland, about 1.5 hour drive from the capital of Helsinki. We used to come here very often as kids when my grandmother Margit was alive, but nowadays very rarely. We would often go fishing in the weekends, and in the summertime my grandfather Walter had a tiny little motorboat, and he was a keen fisher, but died just before my birth. He was a skilled carpenter and worked as a woodworking teacher. Hanko today is a charming small town of almost 10,000 inhabitants, set in a beautiful landscape with over 30 kilometers of sandy beaches. I have such warm memories from my childhood, from playing by the sea, and the smell of the ocean is the most wonderful thing that I know. To this day it brings me a feel of nostalgia, but also a sense of joy. I still enjoy fishing, but don't do it as often as I would like to. I remember as kids playing with my siblings by the water, while my parents were gutting fishes and cleaning the nets. My brother and I played cooking games with fish guts and seaweeds. The most common catch was pike and perch, but back in those days we would catch plenty of flounder too, and even sometimes cod in the nets. Hanko is a beautiful city, especially in the summertime, and is mostly known for the Hanko Regatta, its annual 3-day sailing competition organized here. The competition is one of the biggest sailing events in Finland, and it brings together sailors from more classes than any other regatta. Usually about 10 to 30 boats participate in the competition for each class. The total number of boats in the regatta is often around a couple of hundred. It is often windy in Hanko, and this day is no different. Even when it's beautiful and sunny weather, the winds are usually strong on this peninsula. It's windy in Hanko. You can hear the boats. Yeah. It's very windy, but it is sunny today. I don't know if you can hear anything. I don't have my microphone on. We found a place that we're gonna have lunch. It's called Bryggan. We are having lunch with my parents and my mother's second cousin Tua in a small pierside restaurant called Bryggan. Bryggan means the pier in Swedish, and is, just as the name suggests, located on the pier on Hanko Eastern Port, the largest guest port in Finland. The view of the fine guest harbour creates a perfect atmosphere for enjoying good food and drink with loved ones. After a delicious lunch, me and Tua take a walk around the coastline. The Hanko Peninsula is the southernmost point of mainland Finland. The soil is a sandy moraine, and vegetation consists mainly of pine and low shrubs. The peninsula is known for its beautiful archipelago and long sandy beaches. About 270 bird species are spotted yearly on the Cape of Hanko. For bird watchers and professional ornithologists alike, Hanko is the top spot to go. During mild winters, many species spend the winter here by the sea. Migratory birds use the sand beaches and the bays for shelter and food. Outside the coastline of Hanko, you can find 3 magnificent lighthouses, Bengtkär, Söderskär and Russarö, that is commonly known as the Eye of Hanko. Bengtkär is the tallest lighthouse in the Nordics and rises a majestic 52 meters or 170 feet above sea level. Between 1880 and 1930, almost 400,000 Finns left the country in order to seek their fortune. About 250,000 of them leaving via Hanko to the United States, Canada or Australia. The journey began on steamships, which also carried butter to England. the most important export at the time. Just in the year of 1902, around 23,000 immigrants left Hanko for North America. The steamship company, Suomen Höyrylaiva Osakeyhtiö, built a hotel for immigrants on the boulevard in Hanko the same year. The cape is still guarded by the Eye of Hanko, the Russarö lighthouse, whose twinkle was the passengers' last sight of their native country. The port of Hanko was Finland's first winter harbour and was put to use in 1873 after the railway was completed. But the city also needed business in the summertime, and therefore in the late 19th and early 20th century, Hanko's life as a spa town began. The Hanko Spa was founded in 1879, and the villa area in the spa park was built around the same time. The villas, representative of ornate timbered architecture, were built up to 3 stories high and as grandly as possible, with towers, verandas, balconies, and designed by well-known architects. Hanko Spa Park has 60 or so wooden villas built before the First World War. Villa Doris, completed in 1881, is one of the oldest villas in the park and now functions as a boarding house. In the 20th century, the villas were only occupied in the summer, but today most are inhabited throughout the year and the properties well taken care of. Hanko was a great favorite among Russian bathing guests who would often stay for half the summer or even see the whole season out. Hanko Spa was host to many famous guests over the years, from Finland and abroad, like the Russian author Leo Tolstoy and Finnish composer Jean Sibelius. The first bathing huts were built after the First World War, when swimming in the sea became more common and the suntan a sign of good health. In the 1880s, a steam sawmill and carpentry factory was established to manufacture many of the villas in the spa area. The spa park is a marvelous and unique chapter in the history of Hanko. Hanko Casino, originally called Hanko's Clubhouse, or in Swedish Societetshuset i Hangö, is a wooden restaurant building completed in 1879. It is one of the most famous buildings in Hanko and was originally part of Hanko's spa complex, which included viewing pavilions and kiosks, bowling facilities, a riding ring, and even a lover's walk. There were also docks connected to the spa facility, where spa guests could rent sailboats, rowboats, and canoes. Today, only the restaurant building, the former gymnastic facility, and the Limnigraf building remains of the buildings. After the Continuation War, the actual spa building and many of the other service buildings were so badly damaged that they had to be demolished. But Hanko as a resort town remains, and a spa park and a unique and well-preserved villa neighborhood. Here behind me you can see the Hangö Casino, and this is actually where my parents met. My father in the late 60s, he used to play here in an orchestra, and they had dances in this place. And one day he wanted to find the post office, and my mother was working in the tourist info in the same building. And then she showed him where the post was, and they're still on that journey together. So it's interesting, without this place I wouldn't even exist. Do you feel nostalgic being here in front of the Hangö Casino, Dad?
56 years ago.
You played here?
I play here.
Yeah. And what did you play? What instrument did you play?
Saxophone, flute, clarinet, guitar, basso.
A lot of different things. Did you work here in the tourist bureau?
I did.
So it's the same building, this
Yes,
one?
the same building.
So this is where Mom worked.
1968.
56 years ago.
56 years.
Well, you are still together after all these years and you are still happy and in love, so who can ask for more than that?
But tomorrow begin the showtime here in this place.
Joo, varmasti. Joo, se on kai, jos se
Ja meidän takana oli se rappus.
Joo, kyllä.
How does it feel to be at the casino?
It's very nostalgic.
Yeah. Does it look the same?
Yes and no. It's rather fancy now. Look at this.
Was it fancy back then with the live
Yes.
music?
It was very fancy.
And was it a
It
restaurant?
was a high-class restaurant. Yes, and very good food.
And was there a lot of tourism in the 60s?
Yeah.
But there is quite a lot nowadays in
Yes,
Hanko.
but we had a lot then, back then also. Yeah, so we are back from where we started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
many years
circle
ago.
has been closed.
Yes. Yeah.
Many years together in the same head.
This is my mom's second cousin
Yes.
who lives in Hanko. And I also now found out that she also met her husband in the casino.
Same place.
Same place. So,
8 years later than your mom
Yeah.
met your
so
dad.
it is incredible.
Yeah.
And he was also a musician.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was working in Helsinki. And then he came with the car here, playing and
In the weekends. Yeah.
No, every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah, because they had to play every day.
Yeah. And then they went back to Helsinki and were working the day and then again here.
Oh,
Yeah, so
it's amazing.
yeah, yes,
And Hanko is a beautiful place.
very beautiful.
It is amazing. It seems almost like a different country because all these trees and
Yeah.
the ground is sand.
Yeah.
It's sand everywhere.
Yes.
So there is like no clay or mud like in Siskola. Hanko is situated in a strategically important location and has been a military important place since the 17th century. With the biggest cannons of the early 20th century, it was possible to shoot from Hanko to the middle of the Gulf of Finland, 40 kilometers or 25 miles away. The 30th of November 1939, the Winter War began and Hanko was bombed on the first day of war. During the Winter War, there was practically no anti-aircraft defense in Hanko, so bombing Hanko was risk-free for the attackers. Hanko was bombarded a total of 72 times by February 1940 and was the most bombed city in Finland during the war. 168 buildings, a third of the city's houses, were destroyed during the Winter War. My grandmother Margit's family had 2 shops in town, both of which were destroyed already during the first days of the war. It is a miracle that there were only 6 civilian casualties. As part of the 1940s Moscow Peace Treaty, which formally ended the Soviet-Finnish Winter War, Finland was compelled to lease to the Soviet Union Hanko Headland and the town of Hanko for a naval base for a time period of 30 years. The area of the territory was 115 square kilometers and it included 400 islands and islets, several coastal artillery sites, important harbor facilities, and an area suitable for an airfield, which the Soviets quickly constructed. The civilian population was forced to evacuate before Soviet forces arrived, and the people had 10 days to do so. The job was huge, so work was done day and night. Cars were brought from other parts of Finland, and even buses were brought to the rescue from Sweden, which were driven across the ice to Vasa and from there to Hanko. Residents mainly moved to municipalities in the surrounding area. My grandparents and great-grandparents moved to the outskirts of the capital Helsinki. The rental period, however, lasted for a little less than 2 years. Because when the continuation war began at the end of June 1941, Hanko was recaptured by the Finns and the Swedish Volunteer Battalion in December 1941. The Russians retreated and evacuated their 25,000 soldiers in the area from Hanko, leaving behind them a destroyed city. They left the town heavily mined, which despite of precautions caused much damage. The evacuated residents returned to rebuild their war-battered town. The city hall and water tower had been destroyed, and 80% of the buildings had been damaged. Hanko's church suffered badly in the war. Planks had been removed from the church benches to be used as toilet seats by the invaders before they left. The humid, salty sea air was not good for the brick church either, so there was some consideration building a completely new church, but in the end, the building was thoroughly repaired in 1953. The outer shell was simplified and plastered in grey. In spite of the horrible state in which the town was left, it must have felt wonderful to be able to return home.
This house that you can see here was built by my grandfather Walter. And just behind that, this is where my grandmother's parents lived, in that funkis house there in the back. It's the functional style.
When my great-grandparents came back to their newly built home, even there the invaders had used the wooden floorboards for heating and defecated in the cellar.
Had a big balcony there. Still looking good. This is where my mother lived as a child with her sister. Here is a playground that we used to play a lot when we were kids. It looks just a little bit different now. And when we were good kids, we sometimes got some ice cream. And now the ice cream place is here. It used to be across the street. And this is the park just in front of the church. Whoa, this is a raspberry yogurt. Here is this old slide where we used to go as kids. And I remember because it was so big and so long. It felt enormous. And it's still here. I don't know from what year it is, but it looks pretty dented. But here it is still. How is the ice cream? Are you enjoying your ice cream?
The Monument of Liberty in Hanko was erected in 1921 in remembrance of the landing of German forces in Hanko in 1918. But after the area's Soviet control, the monument had been removed. The monument was rebuilt in 1943, but taken down again in 1946, and re-erected once again in 1960 with a new text, "For Our Liberty."
We are here at the cemetery of Hangö to put some flowers on my grandmother's grave, because she's buried here. My brother was here just a couple of days ago, and I think that he has put exactly the same flowers that we bought to put on their grave. Great mind thinks alike.